we've seen a whopping 5 Star Wars VR games release on the Oculus Quest and Quest 2, and although they're all enjoyable titles, some are definitely better than others. So in celebration of Star Wars Day 2022, I went back to every one of them to decide which one is the best. First up, the Vader Immortal trilogy. Episode 1 being the first VR Star Wars title, it certainly set the bar high, with a dramatically impressive introduction of the man himself and a surprisingly well written and well performed cast of side characters. Episode 1 definitely has the least refined combat, but it does make sense in the context of the story. Episode 2 was always going to be the awkward middle child, unable to capture the original shock of meeting Darth Vader and lacking the spectacle we'd later see in Episode 3. That doesn't mean that Episode 2 is bad. For what they had to work with, they definitely did not disappoint, but it does pale in comparison to both Episode 1 and Episode 3, and that's more of a testament to their quality. And finally, the climax of the Vader Immortal trilogy, Episode 3. Simultaneously balancing intense action and touching story moments, and also featuring the most advanced combat in the series, Vader Immortal Episode 3 lived up to every one of my expectations. On the whole, the Vader Immortal trilogy is a Star Wars experience through and through, and although the playtime isn't anything impressive, the lightsaber dojos offer multiple hours of replayability. Moving on to Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge, and although it's made by the same developer as Vader Immortal, these games are very different. For example, Tales from the Galaxy's Edge is a lot less linear, which does give the player a lot more freedom, but can make the game feel unfocused. The combat mechanics have essentially received a complete overhaul, featuring deployable drones and a larger arsenal of firearms. Unfortunately, this does mean you won't be using lightsabers or the Force outside of a very small portion of the game. These changes do make sense, and they have enhanced the gunplay, but it simply isn't as fun. On the other hand, the characters you meet are just as well performed as the ones in Vader Immortal, and their dialogue is actually funny. This time round, you won't be running into Vader himself, but C-3PO, Yoda, and R2-D2 are all characters you'll be interacting with. The story itself is very enjoyable, but the main problem is that the game is still pretty short. In fact, only just beating Vader Immortal. Thankfully, they did release a paid DLC expansion back in 2021, and it seems to nearly double the game's playtime. So if you're willing to pay a few more dollars, then it's definitely worth it. I'm sure many of you were quick to dismiss Star Wars Pinball as not even having a chance, and while you're probably right, it would be wrong to cast it aside completely, because Star Wars Pinball is a very enjoyable game, and it greatly benefits from virtual reality. On top of the pinball machines themselves, you also have a completely customizable fan cave. So if you're a fan of Star Wars but don't have the money for a decked out collector's basement, then Star Wars Pinball VR might just be for you. Just before I make my final judgment, I'd like to highlight a couple of VR Star Wars experiences that you won't want to miss if you have access to a gaming PC. The first of which is the incredible Star Wars Squadrons, which does indeed have full support for virtual reality. And secondly, while it is unofficial, the Outer Rim for Blade and Sorcery is simply a very impressive mod. So, what is the best Star Wars virtual reality title? Well, all of the evidence points towards none other than the Vader Immortal trilogy. Its perfect blend of action and story creates a very enjoyable 3-hour experience, and when you're done, you can always come back to one of the 3 endlessly replayable lightsaber dojos. But of course, that is just my opinion, so if you think otherwise, please let me know in the comments down below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time.